On September 21st, the Metropolitan Police officer known as the Sheriff of Soho is due to be sentenced after having been found guilty for taking bribes. You see, in some cases, you wouldn't think that training day was an actual thing because you would think that that's just something relegated to the movies.
They just want to tax you a little bit. You know, they got their boats and mistresses and, house payments.
Frank Partridge, Sheriff of Soho, corrupt ex-Metropolitan Police officer jailed after taking bribes in London's West End. Now, I think it's a fair enough statement to say that the nature of the relationship between citizens and police have been a little rocky as of late, especially since people already consider cops to have some sort of a brotherhood, or even allowing some level of corruption that they can't necessarily rat on because they're doing corrupt stuff themselves. There's corruption, and then there's Frank Partridge. The stuff this guy was doing, I would love to just be a fly on the wall, except for when things actually get going, because after a while, if you stay long enough, you'd have to turn your head just because of a little bit of shame. Because, Frank was a kinky boy. So please, sit back and listen to the details of this story, and I will put some pictures up just for you to see what I'm saying. So if you're driving, wait and watch this video when you get home. And if you're sitting back, grab a drink. Let's go. But before we get into it, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like and consider subscribing. Remember this man's name, Frank Partridge, who turns 50. He's being jailed for 7.5 years after he was caught on video with a dominatrix. Now, to those of you that might not be familiar with that term, dominatrix? A dominatrix is a woman who takes the dominating, or is your dom, type of a role in masochistic or BDSM type of sexual relations. In short, you do and say what she says. If she tells you to get on all fours, you get on all fours. If she tells you don't look at her, you don't look at her. If she says lick the bottom of my shoe, you do it and then tell her how good the flavor was. But normally they don't wear shoes, they wear boots. You guys have seen them before, all dressed up in black leather with the whip. And in this case, Frank would be playing the part of the submissive. So you have the dominator, and then you have the submissive. Frank was a sub. I can go into a lot more detail as to what that entails, but I'm going to leave it right there. So Officer Frank Partridge here was using his position and turning a blind eye to fights and crime and allegations of sexual assault. And in return, he would then get to dine at some of the finest restaurants, he'd get tailored suits, he'd get hotel stays, house reservations, and of course the one that he wanted, call girls. And not just regular call girls, the kind of call girl where you could tell her to do certain things and she'll do it.
Okay, here's what I want. First we both get naked.
So far so good.
Only we're wearing sailor hats. And then we get into a jacuzzi filled with Pepto-Bismol. And I clip your toenails and you shave my buttocks.
Frank Partridge also took an £8,000 all-expenses-paid luxury holiday for his family in Morocco and accepted £3,000 ahead for a charity party at Elton John's Berkshire home. If you listen to that statement in and of itself, it lets you know that Frank was dealing with some pretty high-end people. People with connections to Elton John, and I can get him luxury holiday vacations for him and his family members. That not only tells you a little about Frank, but it tells you a lot more about the nature of the people that he was dealing with. So of course, the good times are flowing, things are nice, so how did Frank get caught? Well, he got caught on video. See, on one of Frank's nightly escapades, Ryan Bishty, who's 43 years old, made a video of Frank while he was being whipped by a dominatrix that was dressed in a Catwoman suit. So who's Ryan Bishty? Well, he's the owner of the Cirque Le Soir nightclub in Soho, the very same town where Frank is the sheriff. And remember when I told you guys that Frank was that other kind of kinky? Well, there were some pictures of him with a leash around his neck and him wearing cat ears, while the call girl was dancing either in front or behind him and laughing at the sergeant. But to be honest, even while I was reading up on this story, I don't know what Frank thought was going to happen with this. Did he really think that somebody out there that knows that he's been taking bribes, and even someone that has been offering Frank bribes, did he not think that at some point they were then going to blackmail him? Ryan Bishty, he texted a friend after he took the pictures of Frank and the girl, and he said these words, and I quote, "I have an ace card with the police. This could not have ended any other way." Frank, or as some people in the club know him as, Funtime Frankie, you could even see some images of him with a large snake draped right around his neck, while this dude was dancing to hip-hop songs like Sound of the Police. There's pictures of this guy with singer-star Ellie Goulding, And he was even caught using his police warrant card, which only allows you access to as high as the second class level of the train, but he used it for first class. Now, I said he has a family, so obviously he has a wife, and he has a young child, and they live in Spain. And when I asked the question, how many clubs is this guy really over? Like, how many areas is he really maintaining the peace? Well, the number's 3,000 clubs. He oversees, as the power to be in terms of the police, 3,000 different clubs with the power to close a venue if he so chooses. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. At the time, he was convicted of about 4 different bribery charges, included made-to-measure suits, bespoke shirts, entertainment at Cirque Le Soir, as well as tickets to events such as the Wireless Festival and even a Metallica gig that he got for his mother-in-law. Talk about letting people think that you have some pull. No, old Frankie's out there just bribing his way on top. But it didn't stop there. He even got a signed shirt by Wayne Rooney, along with tickets to Premier League football games. Now the judge, when dealing with Frank, he had some rather choice words to say, and it was namely in relation to Frank's greed. And of course, while dealing with this entire case, the investigation was stopped March of 2020 when the Met Police Anti-Corruption Command was completely shut down and officers were moved to dealing with COVID deaths. After all of that, Frank lost his pension, and the judge did reiterate that he would have actually given him 9 years, but instead he chose to reduce his sentence, namely due to the delay, meaning the COVID delay, and the effect it had on the police sergeant. Old Frank could even be seen on CCTV when 2 women arrived at 3:30 on June 24th at a place that he was staying at. And when they asked Frank if he had any idea what it is that these people did for a living, he replied, no. Well, what else would he reply with? So now, with all that said, everything comes to full culmination on September 21st. So a couple of things. Is anyone truly surprised by any of this? Once I read in these articles that he was then given the ability to close down a venue, do you know what that does to a mind? When you come around, you're never paying for entry fees. You don't buy tickets. You don't stand in lines. You don't pay for drinks, and you definitely don't pay for meals. Unless you as an officer make it very clear, people will go out of their way to see to it that you, the officer who has the ability to close down their business, is made very happy. They want to be your quote-unquote friend, and all they want to know is, what do you need to keep a smile on your face and to turn an eye when I do my job? And as you can clearly see, Frank had a price, and his price was high. Shirts, signed shirts by Wayne Rooney, expensive trips, luxury hotels, dinner with Elton John and some of his friends, hanging out taking pictures with Ellie Goulding and other celebrities, a girl to beat you every now and then, you know, normal things. But after hearing all of that, and given the nature of policing already, I still can't help but think that this is still somewhat a slap on the wrist. With only receiving a 7.5-year sentence, I still can't help but think that somebody somewhere took it easy on him. Who knows, maybe the only reason that he only got 7.5 years is because he was caught on camera. Maybe the judge was right beside him with a leash around his neck as well, and just had to give Frank something where he'll give him the full 7.5 years, but, you know, on good behavior, he'll be released in 2. But that's just my speculation. I am only joking. Kind of. So what is it that you guys think? Do you think this sentence was fair? Do you think for all the bribes Frank was taking, and these are just the bribes that we know of, do you think that he should have received a longer sentence? Or is this right on the money? Or are you in the other camp, which is, nah, just leave the cops alone? Whatever you think, leave it in the comment section, and I will see you again for the next one. Be easy, y'all.